They have a combined 12 years in the National Football League. They combined for 65 career sacks, 232 tackles, 1 Pro Bowl selection, and 1 Employee of the Month award.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
It's Train and Grose on the All AZ Podcast Network.
Welcome in, Train and Grose, mid-August. Exhibition football's getting underway, and we're back for another edition of the podcast. Thanks for finding us. And don't forget, give us a follow on Twitter at Train and Grose. Coming up in our next segment, looking forward to catching up with Vince Marotta. All around good guy, but if you saw the NBA Finals, especially if you watched the beginning of the game, you saw Vince on TV as he was the PA announcer for your Phoenix Suns.
He was the man.
He was the man. Is right.
I was happy for my brother.
I saw that, I was like, damn, I'm jealous. I'm officially jealous. And you hear middays on 98.7 here in the Valley.
But, you know, when I think about that, if there was anybody that deserved that moment, it was Vinny.
I'm still jealous, but I'm happy for Vinny.
Because Vinny is a guy that he's been a long-suffering Arizona fan,
Absolutely.
Phoenix fan, and there have been lots of them, but he's the one that comes to mind when I talk about being a professional. And so the fact that he got to do that, I think it was only right.
And one of the hardest working guys, paid his dues. I want to ask him about a show that he did way back in the day that was on alternative music station. It wasn't even really a sports show that he did with Chuck Powell.
And he put in his dues when it comes to that industry as well. I remember I was doing the music still for the Suns, Rattlers, and Mercury when he got hired, and he was just doing Rattlers.
Right.
So he had to put it, he put in a lot of Rattlers games before ever even getting that Suns position as PA announcer. So he put in a lot. So, yeah, he's the man. Looking forward to catching up with him.
We'll talk to him coming up in our next segment. Before we do that, I'm a little disappointed. Neither one of you complimented me. Gave me a look here. I mean, I come in here, I'm all clean.
Yeah, you look good, bro.
Got a haircut. Went to V's Barbershop.
The shirt's nice and pressed.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I
put on my Friday best for my guys. But I went to V's Barbershop.
Okay.
And I went in and I said, give me a shave.
Shave. So
you
put the hot towel.
Dude, like they have this thing at V's. I don't know what it is.
Uh-huh.
I'm like 85 years old. This magic doesn't come easily.
This magic? Look close in the camera for me now, please, would you?
Look at this.
This magic right here.
This beauty.
This beautiful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
That profile.
Dude, Chris at the store on 7th Street in Missouri.
All right.
Okay.
I said, I want to come in and get the haircut and shave. He's like, you want the whole, I think it's called the whole deal.
Okay.
I was like, give me the whole deal.
Okay.
So get the haircut.
Did he lay you down, though? Were you flat?
Got the haircut sitting up.
Okay.
And then he said, got a stack of towels, man. Stack of towels. And he laid me back.
Okay.
Laid me back.
So it's official. It's official shave.
And then he did, I don't even know what, man, but he was putting like the pre-stuff on and then the shaving cream.
Now, when he applies the shaving cream, does he do it with like what almost looks like a paintbrush type thing where he dips it in and kind of swirls it on? No?
Straight hands.
He's got the hot shaving cream. But when he puts the shaving cream on, before he starts shaving, he put the hottest towel on that I've ever had.
Oh, got to open up those pores, man.
Open it up, man.
Yeah.
And then he shaved.
With the old-fashioned long blade?
Got a man that he's got the blade on your neck.
Oh.
Yeah, old-fashioned long blade.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, they put on more stuff and then more stuff and more towels. And at the very end, they put on this really good smelling stuff, and it burned. And then he put on a cold towel. I was like, damn, look at me.
All right. Yeah,
Look at me. Took about an hour.
Yeah?
Feel that.
No, I'm good. I'll take your word for it.
Feel it.
Baby bottom smooth?
Baby bottom.
Okay.
Like I told you, this magic does not come easy.
See, you're selling me because I know we were chatting a second ago. B-Train and I have both never gone through that particular experience.
I've never had that type
Usually
of
if I
shave.
go in, me too. If I go in for a cut though, a lot of places offer it. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Let me get out of here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now you're selling me on it. Maybe I have to give this a shot.
Well, Chris at V's did a great job, and I will go to him again without question. He said, is this the first time you've had it? I said, oh, no, I've gone to V's before. Mr. Valenzuela, who owns it, my wife taught his kids anyways, long story short. But even before that, Karen, my wife, was delivering a speech at a conference in Las Vegas. Staying at the Las Vegas Hilton. So she's gone for a couple hours. I'm wandering around and losing my ass at the slot machines.
Right.
And I walk by, and there's an this is old school, think about 70s, because they hadn't redone the Hilton at that point.
Right.
Old school barbershop. Had the red and blue pole, dude in the white jacket. And
They had the pump to pull you up, to push you up in the
all
seat.
of it.
Chairs
And he
got a
goes,
couple
have
ribs
you
in
ever
it."
had a straight edge shaver before? And I'm like, no. And he said, come on in.
It's an experience.
It was weird because there was one person in front of me, and lady, she said, "Can I get you a Playboy?" And I'm like,
Wow.
dude, you're like my grandmother. No, I'd never look at that. I don't want to.
Just for the articles.
Never
man.
look at that here. I
Yeah.
mean, come on. What are
Yeah.
we talking about?
Ma'am,
I
just for
don't
the
know.
articles.
What articles are there? So I'm sitting there waiting my turn. And then they call me back, and I was hooked. I was hooked.
Okay.
Yeah, so I highly recommend it.
I actually want to go in one time and get it done on the head. I want to get it done on the head one time, and I want to see how it feels because I've seen it 1,000 times, and everybody that comes up from that vertical or that horizontal position, they come up and they look different. They just have a different feel
Look
to them.
glow to them.
They have a glow. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like they got the glow.
When you talk about like it like washes it away.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even like when you come up, you're like
You feel
man,
cleaner, feel good.
just relaxed.
Okay.
Feel more breeze. Like does the breeze feel cooler on your
all of
face?
it.
I've got a lot of questions though now. How often do you have to do the head on your own?
I can do mine 3 times a week and be good.
Okay.
Now during the pandemic,
Did you let it go?
I mean, no, I didn't let it go because you know that'd be George Jefferson flow. But you know, we're not trying to have the cul-de-sac flow. You know what I mean?
Oh, is that what? Okay.
Yeah, you
All
know
right.
the 1400 block. You know, cut. You know. Yeah, we're not trying
I'm
to
getting
go there.
man. I'm starting to get two of them kind of in the corners right here.
Hey, you know, genetics are a wonderful and yet terrifying thing. You know, I look at my dad and grandfather, God rest his soul, and you know, I hit that off at the pad. You know, I cut that off.
I'm right there with you because when he finished up, he goes, "How do you like it?" I said, "Damn, you're a miracle worker." 'Cause they ain't cooperating with me either, and I'm further along than the both of you. Well, you help yours along.
I got ahead of the curve. I just went against the grain, bro. I just said no.
How old
I'm
were you
not
when you
doing
made
it.
that
So
decision?
I was about to ask.
I was 29. 29 when
Were
I
you
made that
were you
decision.
starting to see something,
Nope.
or you just wanted to go that road?
I wanted to go that road because one, I never had a great grade of hair anyway, so it was never gonna end well, and I hated going to barbershops because I hated giving up all my Saturdays or Fridays when you go because you know at certain barbershops, you know, it's like a sports club. Like you go there and you talk about everything in the world, and these guys are cutting your hair, but they're giving their opinions on whatever.
It's like this podcast.
Yeah.
We try to keep it an hour, but it usually ends up 90 minutes to 2 hours. Yeah.
So, you know, kind of like what we're doing right now. But, you know, it's interesting and it's fun. And, you know, people are selling stuff as you're coming in. They got DVDs and you know, CDs and all that kind of shit. But, you know, it is what it is. I just didn't like the idea of giving up 4 or 5 hours of my day for a basically 20-minute haircut. So.
Well, that's the V's experience. I was in and out in an hour. And
That's
he didn't
pretty
s-
good.
He didn't sell me nothing either.
And you got head and face. So
Head and
that
face. Yeah.
haircut and,
Yeah.
and shave. So, you know, yeah, we got to always make sure we qualify. You know?
I got a haircut. I never went to your barbershop, so I don't know the point of reference that you're making. Man.
I didn't even.
And why
I'll
does
be here all week, bro.
I didn't catch
I'll be
that
here
right
all
away.
week.
I didn't
people
catch
want to
that
know
right
how
away.
these podcasts go for 90 minutes. We got to back that up because if this is like if you're driving down the road, it's a family show.
Yeah, whatever. This is a podcast, brother. We get away with
And
whatever we want to
you
get away
clicked
with.
on our face on the thing, so
Yeah.
you get what
Yeah.
you're getting.
That's
This is
right.
like it just came
That's
on the
right.
radio.
That's
Warning,
right.
Will Rogers, warning. But
Yeah.
I like I said, V's.
Yeah.
We'll go. We'll make a day of it one time.
No
yeah,
doubt.
let's make it a show, a field trip.
Want to do that?
Show.
We'll meet up
Yeah.
there one day and then immediately go to the podcast.
I mean, I would love for somebody because I've never had somebody pamper my hair or my head, you know, as far as shaving it and taking care of it. So I think the first time in 15, 16 years, you know, it's about time.
Yeah, no, and I need to do it because I'll be honest with you. The older I get, like Karen calls me. She's like, she said, and this is not a compliment. She goes, "You look like Ted Cruz." Wow. I'm like, damn, I need to go shave right now.
Right
like,
now.
you know, because mine, I'm getting older, and so it grows in. There's as much white as there is anything else. So it's
getting
got to
there.
go. And
So
but
you
I'm a
just-
fan.
I got some in there.
But you just said something. You said talking about getting pampered.
Yeah.
Where are we at on this program when it comes to pedicures, that type of deal?
I do them
Foot-
myself.
Foot massages.
I do them all. I love all of it. And
Never done it.
Never
What?
done it.
I've never been come mess with my feet kind of guy.
Are you
Am I
serious?
missing out on this?
Bro, you are totally missing out. I mean, that is an experience all to itself. Just the massage. I mean, we're not even talking about, the fact that, the missus will love how it looks and feels because, you're not going to be cutting her up. She's not going to be bleeding half to death while she's sleeping. But I'm telling you, you got to treat yourself at least once.
We've had this conversation. You and I have had this conversation.
I had this on national TV with Jay Leno and I forget the guy's name, his assistant.
I've got more questions now. You were on Leno?
Yeah, I was on Leno, man, and it was during the Super Bowl. And I forget the guy's name. He's his assistant. He would, he's
co-host.
I know he's not co-host.
He's just kind of the guy.
Yeah, he's just kind of the guy. And he was asking me questions during the media day, and he asked me about do I do anything to take the stress off. I was like, hey, I go get a manicure pedicure, and he's like, you should do that afterwards. I was like, no, you got to do that all the time. You got to make sure you keep it grown and sexy. And we had a little back and forth with that, but it was a good time.
And this made it on the Jay Leno show.
This made it on D.
Is it Ross Matthews?
It is Ross the intern. That's it. Ross the intern.
I've known you for over 10 years.
And I never knew that?
And I knew the pedicure. You don't scare me or threaten me as much as Sean does, because he'd throw something out and he'd threaten me. He'd get a DVR, and I'm like, oh, whatever. He said, get a DVR, and so I got home and I called it and got a DVR. And he said, watch this movie, and I'm like, all right. He said, watch this movie. We're going to talk about it next week, and I would always do it. So you said you got to get a pedicure. You'll thank me for it.
Absolutely.
And that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I still haven't gotten one.
Wow.
I guess we're going to have to do. So we got a laundry list of things.
You drew the line at I got him off of soda, and he just drew the line right there.
I remember
that. He hadn't listened to anything I've said.
Yeah,
so I don't even know where this first segment was going to go, but it's going wherever we want to go.
Yeah.
And I tell people this story, and they don't believe me. So you and I met each other, and we went shotgun marriage. We'd started doing a radio show here in Phoenix. And that was in the fall, so we got through our first football season, started to get along pretty well, became good friends. And Ash Wednesday.
Wow.
On the radio. And we'd talk about, okay, segment 1, we're going to do this. Segment 2, we're going to do that. It was Ash Wednesday. And you said, Ash Wednesday 2012. I remember it vividly. And you said, hey, brother, what are you giving up for Lent? And on the radio. And I looked at you, I'm like, that wasn't in the notes here. And you responded with, well, I think you should give up Diet Coke. That stuff's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And I was a heavy drinker of Diet Coke.
Yeah.
So Ash Wednesday 2012 was the last time I've had not only Diet Coke, but any soda.
That's what I'm talking about.
Any soda. I have not had except for beer, I have not had a carbonated drink since that day.
Yeah, I mean,
and support group. Then the very next day, my friend Bertrand walks into Wright Toyota or Wright Honda, one of those, and you had a gallon of lemonade from Chick-fil-A.
From Chick-fil-A, that's right.
And
that's right, I remember that.
He had 2 cups with ice in them, and we drank
lemonade
in that
all
show
long.
So
2 hours.
I traded in whatever Diet Coke was going to do for diabetes. I was like, holy, so much sugar in that. But I had not had a Diet Coke since then.
And you transitioned to room temperature. I know that for a fact. Room temperature orange G2 Gatorade,
which they don't make anymore.
They don't make it anymore.
So I haven't had that since whenever.
All right, another question spawned from this. You can get a gallon of lemonade from Chick-fil-A?
Absolutely, brother.
Dude,
I
learned so much on this show.
Are you kidding me right now?
No, I didn't know that. I love Chick-fil-A and the lemonade there.
Yeah, just ask for the gallon. Just give me a gallon of lemonade.
All right.
And you can get a gallon of iced tea, too. You make your old Arnold Palmer's. You can do whatever you want.
Now we're talking.
Now your mind's blown.
Yeah.
I haven't had carbonation since 93, brother. I haven't had a Coke since 93. And I told him, I was like, dude, that stuff will kill you. And then the diet is worse. Because we had that conversation. Like the diet is worse than the actual regular. Because there's even more stuff you can't even pronounce.
And I was intaking an awful lot of that stuff. You know, at one point, if they would have gutted me on live TV, it would have been a mess. Because So I have not had thanks to you. So
it's all good, brother.
How did we get down that path?
No
I have no idea.
But a gallon of lemon, I'm in on that. There's a Chick-fil-A right by my house
tonight, brother. Treat yourself tonight.
That is happening tonight.
Pro tip.
Yeah.
Don't drink the whole gallon in 2 hours, because that's what we did. His tolerance might have been up for it, but I was like, I got to have something. And it was hard because and I swear to this day, and this is the part of the story I tell people, he did me a favor, even though I didn't like it at the time. It took like 2 weeks before I stopped wanting a Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the middle of the night one night with just a headache, like my head was in a vice headache. And I was like, holy geez. So it was whatever that was, working out my system.
I think it was you who ruined the lime Gatorade for me forever. I think you told us a story, one of the first radio shows I ever did with you, about camp, and how you were so sore you didn't want to get up and walk to
I never get out of bed.
and you just had the Gatorade bottles next to you.
I always lean over.
I can't see the yellow but Gatorade bottle anymore, and I can't get it anymore because Bertrand, now it's all I think about when I see the yellow Gatorade bottle. And that's going back a decade ago when he told me this story. Can't do it. Yellow Gatorade's out because now I just think of Camp Pee bottles every time I see it.
There you go. I always had one right there. So I always just, gave it the little lean over. Never got out of bed. Because I was not getting out of that bed. I don't care what happened. Come hell or high water, I'm not getting out of that bed. So, that's what it was.
Call it Camp Confidential.
Training camp.
Yeah.
Camp Confidential. Things from
You have
Bertrand
roommates?
No roommates.
All right, good.
That was good.
At what point in your career do you not have a roommate in training camp?
I want to say when you really become a starter and you become a consistent contributor to the overall success of the team. I mean, rookies and guys that don't play a whole lot, they're pretty much, you've got roommates.
Yeah.
But when you are a starter or if you've been 10 years in the league, then you kind of reach that plateau where you're untouchable. You're Teflon then.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years is that magic number.
All right, there you go. I like I said, I had no idea where this opening segment was going to go. But this was fine. This was a good segment.
No doubt.
That was an absolutely good segment.
I love these. I love these.
Hey, coming up on the other side, we're going to welcome a guest to the podcast, which we like to do from time to time. And Vince Marotta from 98.7 here in the Valley is going to join us. That's coming up next on Train and Grose.
Train and Grose.
Welcome back in, Train and Grose. As promised, welcome to the podcast, Valley sportscaster, and even though this is his first visit, can we call him friend of the podcast, friend of the program?
Dear friend.
Vince Marotta. Vinny, hey, thanks for making time for us. How are you?
Thanks for having me. How are you guys doing? I'm doing great.
Well, hey, we love doing this podcast and love catching up, and so it's good, all good on our end.
Well, Vinny, hey, listen, let's get right into it. The thing that I came up with, I came up with this title called Love at First Fight. And I wanted to get guys who weren't necessarily players, weren't necessarily athletes. I love you, but, I always wanted to get a non-athlete perspective on when they first fell in love. Because we know when you start talking about sports, there's always the players, there's the coaches, there's people that have to report about it, and there's also the owners. And all of these people have different perspectives on what made them fall in love with sports and make it a part of their regular life. And so you were one of the first guys, being an Arizona native and a guy that's covered Phoenix sports since the beginning. I wanted to get your perspective, one, because you're a good friend of mine, but two, you're as locked into sports and different types of sports here around the Valley and, outside the Valley. So the one question I want to ask you first is, do you remember that first moment where you actually fell in love with sports? And it doesn't matter what sport it is, but can you remember the earliest recollection that you had where you said to yourself, this is something that I want to be a part of for the rest of my life?
It's a great question. It wasn't really a moment because there's not really a time, B-Train, where I remember not loving sports. It was just kind of ingrained in me. Through my relationship with my dad, who made me a sports fan, but I do remember what really drove it home, and that was I was born in New York. We lived out on Long Island until I was 7, and my dad grew up a Yankee fan, and so mid-'70s, I'm probably 4 years old. He took me to my first Yankee game, and it was when Yankee Stadium was being rebuilt. So they played their home games at Shea Stadium. They shared that stadium with the Mets. And I still have pretty vivid memories of that game, even though it was so long ago. They played the Oakland A's. Reggie Jackson was still with Oakland. The Yankees won the game. But I remember that moment, and I think a lot of people will probably have a recollection like this too, where you walk through the tunnel to get into the seating bowl of the stadium, and you see the green grass with your own two eyes of a major league stadium for the first time. Mm-hmm. From that moment on, if there was any doubt that I was going to be a sports fan, it was pretty much driven home right there. It's been a lifelong love affair.
So, Vinny, you talk about the smell of green grass. Was there a player? Was there a particular moment other than that green grass that really kind of solidified that? Was there somebody that really stuck out with you as far as somebody that was within the sports world that did something that just caught your eye and you're like, man, I wish I could really do that?
A bunch of them really, and for me it was those Yankees teams of the mid '70s. My favorite player was Greg Nettles, the third baseman, great fielder, really nice left-handed swing, had some pop. But I was one of those kids. Whenever I saw something, I tried to emulate it. So I didn't play a ton of organized sports at that age, but I was jumping around and diving for like Nerf balls in the living room and things like that.
Yeah.
But I also really early on I was enamored with the whole broadcast part of it too. So it kind of all mixed together from a very young age. That yes, I knew I was going to love sports, but I also wanted to pursue it in some way. And I also realized in the introduction you said you were looking for a non-athlete. I came to mind first. He doesn't get more non-athletic than me, so.
That's only in your adult life, brother. That's only in your adult life. There's no shot. There's no shade in that respect.
Vince Marotta joining us on the podcast, and hey, Vinny. Fast forward. You moved to the Valley. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Greenway High School, the Demons up there on Greenway, just west of I-17. When did you know, like you said, you knew you wanted to be in it, but when did it kind of click and sink in? Because you come to the Valley, and, I don't know the exact timing, but based on what you said, that, I know approximately when you got here, you've seen so much growth. You got here, It was probably only the Suns, Phoenix, Arizona, the sports scene today,
sure.
You've seen so much.
Yeah.
When did it click? When did it sink in?
Really, before we moved to Arizona, we knew we were going to move to Arizona for a couple of years. So that was about the time the Suns made their first NBA Finals in '76. And I don't remember a ton about that, but I remember rooting for them because we knew we were going to be in Phoenix. And we moved out in '79, and it was Suns first. And ASU football at that time in the Valley was a religion. The town shut down on Saturday nights, and everybody gathered around. Either went to Sun Devil Stadium to watch the Devils play, or if they were on television, gathered around the TV. I think from. Are you talking about, Mike, that when it clicked in from wanting to get in on the broadcast side of things?
A career standpoint, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would say 8th grade. I was unceremoniously cut from my 8th grade basketball team.
Bastard.
I'm still pissed about it, by the way.
Good.
There you go. You should be.
And I'm still friendly with the coach to this day, and I remind him about it all the time. But I got cut, and I still wanted to be involved. So I told the coach, hey, if you need me to keep the stat book or anything like that, I would love to be involved. And I ended up going to every game. I think every player on the team missed at least one game, but I was there the whole time.
Wow.
He also was a part-time ticket salesperson for the Suns. Mm-hmm. So he would set up games for our school's team to play other schools before the Suns would play. So we spent a lot of time down at the Madhouse on McDowell. And I remember once being at the table while my school was playing, and I'm keeping the stats book, and they were playing the Seattle Supersonics later that night. And their play-by-play broadcaster, and Lenny Wilkins, who was the head coach at the time, came by, and I guess I was taking up too much room on the scorer's table. I said, we need just a little bit more room to do our pregame interview. We got to tape it. And I said, oh, sure, absolutely. And I remember the broadcaster. I don't remember his name, unfortunately, but he said, yeah, you'll learn about this business. And that's kind of when it clicked in, was really that whole experience. I was a small kid. I knew I wasn't going to be a pro athlete. So you find a way that you can turn it into your advantage and make it your career. So that's what I did.
Here with Vince Marotta here on Training Grose. And Vince, I want to talk about, since you've been a professional broadcaster here in the Valley, you've seen a lot of the ups and downs here in the Valley. There's been more down than ups, to be quite frank, but there have been some moments. And obviously we have the 2001 World Series victory over the Yankees. You're Yankees from days of old. And then we've had a lot of heartbreak to go behind that. So in your mind, what stands out more? Does it stand out more the win with the World Series with the Arizona Diamondbacks, or the loss in the Super Bowl 2008? Obviously this past July, the loss in the finals to the Milwaukee Bucks. What do you remember more? Do you remember the wins, or do you remember the losses more?
I would like to say the wins, but that win, the World Series win for the Diamondbacks, came so early in their history. I think, if you jumped on the Diamondbacks bandwagon early, and as a kid, I was a Yankees fan, but I waited for baseball to get here. So in '98, when they started, I did jump on board. They had one losing season, and then they were a great team after that. So to win the World Series in year 4, I think it was probably a little bit too much of a good thing too soon for the D-backs. And now we see what waiting for a championship feels like with them. The Cardinals, when you guys made it to the Super Bowl that year, there were long-suffering Cardinals fans that couldn't believe it. It was surreal for them. And, the Suns' existence and history is even longer in the Valley. So now 3 times I'll count 2 because the Suns' first trip to the finals was a little bit too early in their history, too, and too early for me to remember. But, it's been 53 years that they've been a team now without a championship. So I guess it's a little bit of the Phoenix sports experience, and it's a little bit of my pessimistic nature. But long-winded answer to your question, B, definitely the losses.
Yeah, I hear you, bro.
Well, and you talk about the ups and downs and the highs and lows, and Vinny, I mentioned it when I was bringing you on, but I can't even imagine for somebody like yourself the road that you took, and then for this NBA Finals, and I saw it on social media, your family members put Vince Marotta, the voice of the PA announcer for the Suns, with the introduction of the starting lineup. I mean, I can only imagine if that were me, back in Detroit where I'm from, or what, I'd be like, what, me? What now? I'm on. I mean, it had to be surreal that moment for you.
It was, and I've loved every minute of doing that job. I actually auditioned for that job like 15 years before I got it, and completely botched the audition. I think I got laughed out of the audition room. But for somebody like me, I rooted for the Suns since I was a kid. So to have the best seat in the house, as they say, to be able to do that, it's a great job for a team that wins 19 games a year.
Right.
This year was not completely unexpected, but they exceeded the expectations. Obviously, it was a treat, and there's a little bit of nerves that go into that job every night you do it. But they told me before the game that the finals were being shown in 215 different countries, so that really gets your blood pumping a little bit.
Worldwide.
And you wait for the cue from Mike Breen from ESPN to throw it to you, and basically welcoming the whole world to the NBA Finals. It's something I'll never forget.
Man, I got to tell you this. I look at you and your career. I've lived here for a long time, not quite as long as you. Your resilience and the work that you've done to get where you are now. I got to tell you this, and just like you talk about not having a favorite kid or a favorite team, you've worked with a lot of people in this town, and you probably don't have a favorite partner that you worked with. But I'm going to throw one out there. For me personally, your work that I really enjoyed was you and Chuck. The stuff that you guys used to come up with. It was on a weird station, but it was so good. And to this day, I remember it. You guys did this thing where Chuck was doing the imitations of the sports personalities in this town, and I think was it you with Drew and Heather maybe. That's that you guys did that, and to this day, like if somebody said, "Hey, what is your top radio that you've heard in this town?" Taking nothing away from your work currently. That work that you and Chuck did back in the day, Vince, for me, it was amazing. And it just shows, I think, what's paying off for you in the long run is the versatility to make it in this type of industry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Not a week goes by where I don't hear from somebody, whether it's running into somebody who's a fan or hearing from somebody on social media where they don't bring up that particular show. The Morning Ritual, we were on the edge back in the day. And that was the second show we had actually worked together. We had a show called Bare Naked Sports on another sports radio station in town that didn't last very long. But we both made the jump over to FM alternative music, which was weird. As a guy in my early 30s, I felt like a fish out of water when I got there. But it was a lot of fun, and did that for 4.5 years, and then got back into the sports thing. But I appreciate it. And, it was a lot of fond memories from that time.
And the other thing I got to ask you, just going off script a little bit, but I was looking at your bio on Twitter, and Sean and I were talking about this beforehand. Sean and I have done shows together, 3 years worth of radio here and there, and we used to do movie reviews. And on your Twitter bio, it says Sandler apologist. I'm going to need a clarification on that to find out how much you're apologizing for, and then I'll decide if we need to delve further into this or not.
There is a line of delineation on Sandler Movies. I can take the goofy because you know you're going to get goofy.
Yep.
There's like probably 5 movies that are just absolute garbage.
Yeah.
I love most of them, but 5 of them that are garbage. Jack and Jill comes to mind. Grown Ups 2 was just awful. A couple of the Netflix ones that have been out have been pretty goofy, but I'm just like, he makes a certain type of movie, and he makes a certain type of movie with his friends a lot. But everything you hear about Adam Sandler, the person, he just seems like a great guy.
Yeah.
That's very generous and giving, and that's part of the reason why. And those early movies, I mean, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, they suck you in.
Yeah. Sean got a cease and desist from somebody from Sandler's camp about, because he was pretty harsh on the older stuff, or the newer stuff, I guess, technically.
Well, okay, it was just stuff that Vinny's talking about.
Right, exactly.
It's the Netflix stuff, right? I mean, there's maybe one that's even tolerable, and the rest are just hot garbage. So,
Yeah.
Well, the Grown Ups 2, I think you and I actually talked about on the radio one day, and I thought you were going to lose it, and that's when we got the letter. But no, I'm glad for the clarification, and we'll agree, and we'll move on for that point. The other thing too, Vinny, that I appreciate about the way you work and the way you deliver things, and I was driving around this week during your show. You guys were talking about the 49ers for some reason. I forget the context. And you're talking about the quarterback battle, and you made me spit my drink out when you talked about Jimmy Garoppolo and his rugged good looks. I mean, that type of just your personality, I think, is the thing that people can appreciate as well. Because, again, just, the generic sportscaster guy that, breaks down plays or breaks down players, and everybody understands their role, but, your perspective and that sort of, like I said, interjection when I'm driving down the road listening to it, I love that and appreciate it. And I think what makes you so good at what you do.
Thanks. I've had so many program directors, and I'm sure you guys have had them in the past too, where they'll describe what they want the show to sound like, and they always say it's just a bunch of guys sitting around a table at a sports bar. And so if I'm with my friends and we're talking about the San Francisco 49ers or Jimmy Garoppolo, we're going to poke a little bit of fun at the fact that he looks like a GQ model and he plays quarterback. So
and he hangs out with porn stars. We'll let it slide with that too.
There's that too. So I try to keep that at the front of everything I do. When we boil it down and we really look at what we do for a living, it's important, yes, but it's not critical to anything. So if you can't have fun doing it, then what are we doing it for?
Vinny, hey, good stuff. We appreciate you hanging out with us a little bit on the podcast. Enjoy your work, and again, like I said, congratulations. You had obviously the Suns did their thing, but you had a really cool summer, and I was really happy for you when that happened, and you look good to 250 million people across the globe, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Train and Grose.
Thanks again to Vince Marotta.
My cousin Vinny.
Could have kept him on for hours.
Forever, man. I mean, he's such an easy conversationalist. You can talk to him about anything, and he's got a little bit of knowledge about anything. Love so guys like that.
Thanks again, Vince Marotta. Join us on the podcast. Get him middays 98.7 here in the Valley, and I'm sure it's available if you're not in the Valley somehow over the World Wide Web. All right, B-Train exhibition football underway. Game's already been played. Sure. Really going to hit it full speed this weekend. You retired 2010, so
January
over
2010.
a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
When did you physically miss it? Because I know over the years, whether you're college or pro, whatever, talking about how professional athletes, football players specifically, creature of habit, and how you shut it down leading up to training camp.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know physically, like you were free of that? Like when you didn't wake up thinking about I gotta get ready for camp or whatever it is. When did you know? When was it fully in the rearview mirror?
2 years. It took me 2 years.
Wow.
Because the thing that really used to stick out for me was the smell of fresh cut grass in the summer.
Yeah.
If I smelled fresh cut grass in July or August, my body would react.
Yeah.
Like I would feel different because that was the signal that it was time to get ready for training camp. And it took me the longest time to physically get over. Now, mentally, I was actually done before I finished that last season.
Right.
I had made it up in my mind, and I told family and immediate, close friends that, hey, this is it. But from a physical standpoint, my body didn't really adjust and adapt till about 2 years later, to about 2012. When we got on the show.
Yeah.
That was when I really made that transition to where my body didn't respond to July or August or anything like that. So, yeah, it took two full years.
Did anybody try to talk you out of your decision? You said
no.
family, friends, whatever. They knew.
They knew. Well, they didn't. I didn't give anybody the opportunity because I'm the one that's out there.
Right. It's
my body. It's my choice. So they were like, "Hey, you've given us enough of a ride. I mean, 13 years on and off. I mean, that's long enough."
Yeah. Well, and again, you look at it, just from a number standpoint.
Yeah.
Your career was an exception, not a rule in the NFL. I mean, I don't know what the average is now, but it's
still 2.3.
2.3 years.
2.3.
So to go as long as you did.
Yep.
And again, I've known you long enough, but we'll explore it a little bit. It was more mental than physical as those years went along, right?
No question.
So to your point, when you knew you were done, that's a bad place to be on a football field when you're mentally not there.
Yes, and anytime that and I can spot athletes when they are in that in between, as far as how they play, and you see them play before they make that decision, and then once they've made that decision, you can actually see the difference in how they play. Because Drew Brees, prime example. Mm-hmm. Love Drew Brees. I thought he's one of the all-time great quarterbacks. He held numerous NFL records, probably still holds them. I don't know for how much longer, but seeing the way that he played last year towards the end, it looked like a different Drew Brees. He didn't have the same vested interest that he had in previous seasons, and I knew, I was like, he's not long for this league. Like I could see this absolutely being the very end of the road. This is his last hurrah. So mentally, again, going back to that point, what was it? When did you know that it was done? Like, what triggered that for you? And you kind of alluded to it a little bit in conversations you and I have had before, but what kind of pushed you to that point? What pushed me to that point, the first thing that pushed me to the point was going down the roster and seeing guys that were born in the 90s that were my teammates.
Right.
I knew what was going on in the 90s. I was actually a teenager in the 90s, and for me to play with guys that young, I said to myself, nah, man, dude, I got to get the hell out of here. This is a young man's game, and I am not young in relation to football. I was 34, I believe, when I retired. So I wasn't a spring chicken. I was more like a summer duck. So, I knew it was time to move on. And, seeing guys that were that much younger than me,
right.
The conversations were awkward and they were forced.
Right.
Because it's just a completely different – I mean, that's basically 2 generations removed, 12 years, 13 years. And when you can't relate to your coworkers like that, it's time to find another job.
Right. And we've talked about this as well, but that last game, there's a lot going on. And one of your teammates retired after that game.
Yeah, his soul retired before the game was over. When he took that hit, his soul is still at the Mercedes-Benz Dome in New Orleans.
I totally vividly remember that play. I mean, there's so many good things happening in Kurt Warner's career.
Yeah.
But that play in his last game as a professional, like people said a prayer. I mean, because he was –
the stadium was quiet.
And I'm not making light of it, but it was the cartoons where something happens and then you see the – that's
absolutely
what happened to Kurt Warner on that hit.
Yeah. I mean, he basically – his soul waved by to his body because it was one of those where he did not get up.
Right.
I mean, he threw that interception, and he took about 3 steps, and that was all she wrote. And I heard that hit in the middle of that dome. And I'm telling you, there are a few places that I've heard it as loud as it was in that dome in New Orleans. I know the NFC Championship game here, Kansas City once upon a time was extremely loud. BYU was another one in college that was very loud and raucous. And then you had the New Orleans Saints fans. When Reggie Bush took that punt return to the house, I don't ever remember having to cover my ears.
Right.
I had to cover my ears. It was so loud in that building. And that was just fans losing their mind. It wasn't artificial noise. It wasn't noise pumped in. Like, you knew that team was on a mission, and there was no shame in losing to the eventual Super Bowl champions.
What do you think about now when you watch exhibition football? Because we'll talk about games and obviously appreciate the perspective that you give breaking down real games.
Yeah.
But when you watch exhibition games and know from a player standpoint, and obviously they've eliminated one this year, but you were never a fan. And what do you think of when you watch it today?
I'm torn, Mike. I'm torn because I didn't like it once I got to a certain status, and I'll be very transparent here. My time in Denver was solely based on what I did in those preseason games.
Right.
In 2001, I needed every single rep I could get in the preseason. And had it not been for the preseason, there's no way that I would have been a member of the Denver Broncos. Had COVID been part of 2001 and I was off the street free agent, there was no way that they would have given me the chance that I got from practices, from extra reps and mini camps and OTAs and all of that stuff, all the way up to training camp and playing into the fourth quarter at the end of the games when you're just dead tired. There's no way that I'd be a member of the NFL. So I owe everything to preseason games. So I'm torn, Mike. I know that they serve a purpose. You got to have some. You can't not have any. You've got to be able to get that callus built up. Your body has got to feel the bumps and the bruises and the falls and all that stuff to be ready for the season. I just don't think you need 4. They've already cut it to 3, added on another game. I think if they were to get down to 2, that would be a nice sweet spot for the NFL and for the players to feel good about, okay, let me get myself ready, let me get into shape. And these 2 games, that'll give me about 20, 25 plays roughly to get myself ready for the upcoming season.
When you talk about the mental aspect and the fact that you knew you were done and it was time to step away, you hear people, Sean, myself, right, the day job, the boss.
Yeah.
Like, wow, my boss, I hope she's not listening. I love my boss.
Yeah.
So just for the record, my boss, she's cool.
Yeah.
But when you think about a football team,
Yep.
You've got several bosses. You've got the owner, who's the ultimate boss. You've got a general manager, player personnel, whatever those titles are. And then you've got the head coach.
Yep.
I would imagine from a player's perspective, those types of people, those types of individuals influence that and impact you and how you feel about, quote unquote, going to work every day.
Mike, I'll just say this. The Bidwills, I appreciate them because they gave me an opportunity to change my life and to change the trajectory of my family's life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them on a day-to-day basis. So owners are never going to really determine how a player feels about that organization, how they go about business in that organization. There's very little influence other than you see his name at the bottom of your check.
There you go.
And even nowadays, I don't even know if they still do checks.
Direct deposit.
It's a direct deposit. So that relationship had its own merit, but my direct contact with the head coach was one of the reasons that I did not want to play anymore. We talked about with Vinny. Wiz was a guy that I didn't like. I just didn't like him, and I didn't like the way that he did things. And when you don't like your boss and you don't like the guy that you have to go out there and put your body on the line for, that makes it a very difficult situation. It makes it a totally different situation,
right,
Mike, because now you're thinking about all of the risk that you're taking.
Right.
When you don't feel like you're in lockstep with the guy and you don't feel like you have the same beliefs and you're not on the same page, it changes the way that you view the game in and of itself. Practices become it becomes so unbearable. Working out, going to meetings, having to listen to the guy, all that becomes very, very difficult. Games become almost a relief. Like, you don't have to see him on the game day for the most part. So if you have a great relationship, if you don't have a relationship with the coach, you only really deal with your or your coordinator and your position coach. You really don't deal with the head coach during the game because he's back and forth with the coaches up in the booth and trying to figure out, how to get things done and how to make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be. So you can get away with it, but that's just not enough when you have that one day, but then you got to deal with him the other 6.
Well, and I think for context, you played 6 years here.
Yes, I did.
Started with Denny Green.
Yes, I did.
And then obviously ended
after 3 years.
And end is the operative word with Ken Wisenhunt.
He wasn't who I thought he was.
And we'll get to that, back to that in a minute. How important was Denny Green in that decision? Because, again, you talk about, the time that you spent in Denver to reinvigorate your career, and then the Bidwell has given you opportunity to change your trajectory, your family's trajectory. But Denny Green was the guy at that point. Like, how did he factor into the decision to come here and to take advantage of the opportunity that the Cardinals were giving you?
He was everything. He was the reason that I came. And if it's not for him, I'm not here, because he's the one that said, we're going to build a defense around you, and we're going to make you the focal point, and you're going to be our leader, unquestioned. And my time in Denver was great. I enjoyed it because they gave me a second chance. They resuscitated my career. I'll forever be grateful to Denver for what they did. But here is where they gave me the opportunity to be the guy, to be the focal point, to say, hey, we believe in you. And I also got to give a shout out to Rod Graves as well. Denny and Rod Graves, a black head coach, a black general manager, that was the only combination that we had in the league. And not to say that was the only reason. Obviously, the paycheck was most important. They cut the check. Thank you so much. To have that sort of representation, I wanted to win to validate that.
Right.
I wanted that to be something that had more visibility and became more of a norm in the NFL, because they were the only combination that we saw out of 32 teams at that point in 2004. So they were very instrumental in me being here.
And then, again, start with Denny Green and with Ken Wisenhunt.
Sure.
And when you have a coaching change,
yes,
and people talk about chemistry and the influence of the head coach in the building, was it noticeable day one? Like, again, the relationship you had with Denny Green, you just described it for us.
Yep.
And then, you wake up, Denny Green's gone.
Yep.
Ken Wisenhunt's the guy.
Yep.
Is it noticeable at that point? Like, can you tell right away that, oh my gosh, it's a new sheriff in town?
Yeah, it is different because it's a different voice. It's a different feel. It's a different approach. Denny was very much a confident man, especially at first. In 2004 and 2005, he was a very confident man. 2006, things started to unravel, but he was a very confident man. And Wiz came in, and he was very straightforward. He seemed rehearsed at times, and it was almost too mechanical. Like, there wasn't any, like, you had to like, you want to tell him, just relax, just chill, just be you, just do your thing. I respected Wiz at the time when he first got here, because he was coming from a winning organization in Pittsburgh, he had won a Super Bowl there in 2005 with the Steelers. And so he came in with instant credibility, and the coaching staff came in with instant credibility as well. And so, we went 8-8 our very first year, which was the best record we had since we had been here. So that trust was built right away, because we came in and you could see the team actually improve. It was Denny's picks, but then he put his little, added spice and flavor to it, and we hit magic, 2 years, the very next year. So you have to give him credit for that, but I really, in hindsight, really wish that another coach had been part of that championship run.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I don't think it gets brought up enough, because you look at those drafts that happened with Rod Graves at the helm and Denny Green as the coach.
2004 and 2005, I'll put those drafts up against anybody's.
And they had longevity.
Yeah.
You look at the impact.
The talent. I mean, just the straight talent that they had.
Right?
I think about the 04 all the time. Mike, they had Larry Fitzgerald, Carlos Dansby, Darnell Dockett, Antonio Smith, Alex Stepanovich. Then you go 2005, you had J.J. Arrington, you had Antrell Roll, you had
Anquan.
Well, Anquan was already here. Anquan was here
he was before Larry.
He was before Larry.
That's right, but still.
People gave – and you remember he caught so much flack for drafting Larry.
Back-to-back wide receivers.
Because we had Anquan already. Why would you go get Larry when we've already got a Pro Bowl receiver? I think we all know how that worked out.
18 years later.
18 years later.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was a pretty good deal.
So I think that's a good point. Like, you did. You give Wiz credit because he took what was
you
there
got to give him credit.
And pulled the strings to make it work.
Yes, he did. And he brought in the coaches that made it all work.
Without those drafts, it never would have happened.
No.
And I remember we were doing a radio show back in the day, and that year the Cardinals had a draft function that we were part of and Carlos and Darnell came walking in together after the fact. That was were you there? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, to the point where, and this is maybe a tip of the cap to who Carlos is as a person as well. I had met the man one time. About 2 years later, I'm at a gas station doing a radio show, and a black, I think it was a Benz something, pulled up, nice ride. Guy gets out. It was just a ways away, so I couldn't really tell who he was. But got out, was pumping gas in his car, just put the pump in, and then started walking my way. And he looks over and he goes, "Hey!" Came and sat and went on the air with me for a full segment. Hadn't talked to the man in 2 years.
Yeah.
Met him one time, and it was like we were old friends. It was the craziest thing. Like out of nowhere, just at a gas station, walks up, comes on the air for a second.
Well, in the Cardinals PR at the time, they gave us a segment with each of these guys. Right? And Darnell came in, nice guy, but Darnell was in. And
he had a chip on his shoulder.
He did.
He had a chip on his shoulder.
And he wore it beautifully for a while. Carlos came in, and Carlos didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
They put the headset on, and Carlos, and we're going to go to a break. He's like,
he was actually with the Browns, and they were on a bye week when that happened, and they had just played the Bengals the week before, and they had a couple of dust ups or whatever. It was just crazy.
He wanted to market the lobster mash.
Probably
the lobster mash. Because Carlos is a very good friend still, and
he was just a good dude.
He was a businessman. Yeah, he was a businessman, and he understood when you're on the radio and people are listening. That's an opportunity to market yourself.
No doubt about it. So I'm glad you brought that up because everybody remembers the run, and it was magical. It was special. But it took a lot to get there, and it wasn't just that regime.
No, it wasn't.
It was the build up to that.
Yep.
So, good stuff. Interesting perspective. Obviously, exhibition football. There's only so much you can talk about when it comes to the games, but that perspective is one that we appreciate.
Yeah, Mike. One thing else I want to add too about preseason is that if you approach it the right way,
right.
I think for guys that aren't necessarily guaranteed to be on the 53, there is all types of opportunities to get yourself in position to not only make the 53, but you can also make the 10-man practice squad roster. Right. And I don't know if that's even been expanded, with COVID and everything else. Yeah. I think it was expanded even further than that. But if you are smart about it, there are different ways that you can make yourself valuable to the team.
And you hear a lot of guys, and I'm sure you've had guys on your team go elsewhere or be brought in based on things they put on film while playing for somebody else.
Yeah. Sure.
So, during these games, you're not just, and you hear people talk about it all the time, you're not just auditioning for the coaches and trying to make your 53
That's
or
correct.
Your practice squad, but
That's
there's 32 teams out there just
Yep.
trying to improve.
Yep.
And, if you show on tape you can do it, you might not make this roster for whatever reason, but there's 31 others that you might end up on.
And I was, again, driving around today going to get the image.
shave.
Yeah,
there you go.
Looking good. And Vince and his partner Dan Bickley were talking about the battle for the third running back position. Yep. And at first I'm like,
Benjamin's one of them. Yeah.
But at first I'm like, what? But just exactly what you're saying. Because in this league, especially with an additional game, people are going to get hurt.
Well, look at some of the stories. Even the recent ones. Darren Waller has now become one of the best tight ends in all of football. He was on the practice squad with the Ravens, and the Raiders front office saw him warming up and said, "Who's that guy?"
Yeah.
And John, he had a lot of issues with drugs or whatever, and had his issues, which he's very open about. And John Harbaugh was more than willing to give him a shot somewhere else because the roster just wasn't made for him to play there in Baltimore. And now look what happened. He's one of the best tight ends in football.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at Tony Jefferson. Tony Jefferson's one of the best examples of taking care of your business in preseason, and he's made a nice career for himself. Not only here with the Cardinals, but in Baltimore, and I think he's with Los Angeles. If I'm not, I think it's Los Angeles, but the Chargers. So you can do it.
And
you
Victor
just
Cruz.
have to. Victor Cruz, another guy. Just because you're not drafted doesn't mean that you're doomed to just be at the end of everybody's roster.
Priest Holmes.
You can make a name for yourself. I don't know how in the hell Priest Holmes was not drafted. I played against Priest in college. He was every bit the runner that a lot of those guys were. He shared a backfield with Ricky Williams back in the day. He was the fullback. Mm-hmm. So
as soon as he got his chance in the NFL, it was over. Good night.
Yeah.
It was over.
Yeah.
I looked it up while you were talking. Tony Jefferson ended up playing 98 games in the National Football League.
Think about that. And, I mean, he was a guy that was at the bottom of the roster.
98 games.
And he made a nice career for himself.
4 years here, 3 years with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it. Real football starts for real. Real football starts for real. That's
September
nice.
September
Dynamite
12th, I
dropped
think,
in.
somewhere in there.
Way to go. That
Or no, Thursday, like September the
next month.
9th.
What I was trying to say,
I got you.
next month.
I'm with you.
That broadcasting school's really paying off.
Dynamite dropping.
I'm with you.
Yeah, all right.
I'm with you.
Is it that time already?
It is.
It is time.
Compliment the shirt. We're almost into the fourth segment, but compliment the shirt. I wonder what's coming up next. Was this by design in case I forget to set it up properly?
I mean, hey, it is what it is. It's taking on a life of its own, brother.
Pump the brakes and dad jokes. On the other side, you're listening to Train and Grose.
Yep.
Final segment of the podcast. And you know what that means. And I know for a fact that, we talked about it before.
Yeah.
Some days we do about an hour.
Yep.
We've been known to go as long as 90 minutes or more. But people stay with us
For this.
for this.
Yeah.
Well, and then now dad jokes is just Trump.
Well, that's what I mean.
But
Well,
yeah.
and sometimes we actually go an hour just on this
on
section.
this segment.
No guarantee.
So I have a feeling a couple of these might go long.
Okay.
So I've only got 4 written down, just so
Okay.
you know, instead of 5.
All right.
What the hell's that crew doing back there, man?
Well,
That's
because these might, I guarantee they're going to actually.
right.
can I wait before we do that?
Yes.
I need to. We've got a cast of literally thousands working on this show.
Yeah.
And I always take a shot at the suits back in the corporate
Of
office.
course.
I'm my wife's first week of school. I brought her an iced tea today.
Atta
Scoring
way.
points,
There
right?
you go.
But right when I did that, it popped up on my phone from Yahoo Sports fantasy update. Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
I just about threw my phone out the car.
Yeah.
Who the hell does Yahoo Sports think they are?
Yeah.
And why didn't we trademark
Yeah,
this?
I don't know. Hey, but the real ones know.
Yeah.
They know
That's-
where it's at.
And we've been doing it for a while, so they know. They know.
43 episodes
The
worth.
real ones know.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, I just had to get that off my chest.
Get
All
it
right.
off, brother. Get it off.
So I'm going to give you guys some of the top stories, things people are talking about in the world of sports, some randomness as well.
Yeah.
You tell me if you're pumping the brakes on
Yeah.
it or if you're riding with it.
Yeah.
We're recording this on Friday, which means last night Major League Baseball held their Field of Dreams event with the Chicago White Sox and the New York Yankees. Pump the brakes or not, that was the best damn thing baseball's done in decades.
Oh, I'm not pumping the brakes on that. That absolutely was the best damn thing. And the thing that made it even sweeter for me is that the Yankees lost on the walk-off. Bumped the Yankees. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about the Yankees.
Yeah.
Look, when it first came out, I was like, really?
Gimmicky.
This
What
is
this gonna be?
gimmicky,
Sure.
And I hope it goes to extra innings so we can have a runner on second base and all the. No. Major League Baseball.
They got it right.
Killed it.
They got it right.
I know people don't like Joe Buck and so. Killed it.
They got it right.
Having Kevin Costner,
Kevin Costner is
walk out
The teams
Killed
walk
it.
out together. That
the
was
corn,
awesome.
out of the cornfield.
That was
Killed it.
awesome.
Kevin
That was
Costner's
awesome.
speech where he's standing there.
Yeah.
Is this heaven?
And the
Yeah.
way they staggered it for them to walk out too, so it wasn't just like, hey, here's the Yankees, here's the White Sox,
No.
but just like in
They
the
were
movie,
together. It was like all of them.
just like in the movie, couple come out here, couple come out there. It was beautiful.
It was
The
great.
uniforms, everything was. It was heaven.
And it was a walk-off. A
They
walk-off
nailed
won it.
it.
Yeah.
All of it.
It was very much kind of like, had the NBA. The NBA's trying out this whole play-in tournament thing.
No.
But things lined up for them, right? By having the Lakers have injuries and fall down,
Yeah.
and the Warriors fall down. For Major League Baseball, it worked out for them. They did a great job. It was going to be a good event anyway. But it worked out for them because the game was phenomenal too.
The game was
Leads
remarkable.
back and forth, and then the walk-off.
But I think they won the event before the first pitch was even thrown.
With
Once
the
you
intro.
saw what it was with
Yes.
the intro and everything about that. And my hope is, because they've already announced they're going to do it again, my hope is that kind of what you were talking about before, when it's time to retire, it's time to retire. At some point, we will have enough of this.
Yes.
And it's like the NHL and the Winter Classic. Like, it was great for a while, and it's great in certain locations.
Yeah.
But you're going to the well way too much on
3
it.
years.
Well,
3 years. and
whatever
get
it
out.
is.
3 years.
I would say only do this every 5 to 10 on the movie anniversary, because they're going to do this next year. Rob Manfred already said they had
There's
a
no
great
doubt.
turn.
They're gonna
They'll
do it the
next
year after
August.
that, too.
But let me ask you this. The best part about it, we all just talked about it. Kevin Costner walking out
Yeah.
before, then the teams walking out of the cornfield. How do you you can't redo that moment next year. It's
Yeah.
not going to be nearly the same.
Right, but I mean, okay, but let's not bury the lead. It worked out great because the game worked
Was
out
good,
great.
yes.
Had the game been 11-0,
Yep.
everything gets pushed down a little
Well,
bit.
and here's another thing that I took away from last night. We've spent 3-4 years now, if not more, Major League Baseball, worrying about pace of play and more so the length of the games, right?
Sure.
They're changing all these rules and everything.
Right.
Even though the average college football game is almost 4+ hours, and the NFL is pushing 3+.
1,000 commercials
and
in
nobody cares, right? Last night, that game was 3 hours and 39 minutes long, and nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
Baseball, pay attention. It's not the pace of play. You gave us a compelling product
It's the
last
quality of
night.
product.
You gave us a good product last night, and that's why people stayed in. It has
That's a fair
nothing to
point.
do with the pace of play. Stop changing things
Fair point.
and find a way to make the game better.
Yeah,
point.
no, I look. Like I said, when it first was announced, I'm like, no, you don't need to do this.
Yeah.
And the funny side note, somebody tweeted it out. You remember in the movie how they showed the cars lined up on the road to get in?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, apparently parking was
brutal?
an issue.
Was it the same?
And so if you look on Twitter,
Yeah.
it's like if you're not there yet, good luck.
You're right.
Yeah, because this is in
There was
Cornfield,
only,
Iowa.
There's only 8,000 people in the stands. It's all they had.
This is in Cornfield, Iowa.
Again, that Cornfield Hour,
They
so
probably-
imagine there's at least 4,000 cars.
400 people
Okay.
probably live in that
All right.
town.
Fair.
If that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I thought that was a funny side note because they even recreated that unintentionally.
And weren't they parking like over by the old field,
Yeah.
like the act where they filmed the
And-
movie?
and you got to walk in
That's
through
so
the,
cool,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that all being said, Field of Dreams is a way overrated movie.
Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. The fact that you can talk about it after the fact and bring Kevin Costner back and put a Major League Baseball game on based on that movie. Because let's say that movie never happened. And Major League Baseball said, we're going to build a baseball field in the middle of a cornfield. You'd be like, what?
Okay.
So, yeah.
That
No,
doesn't
the movie
change-
is not
It
overrated.
doesn't change the fact that it is not an all-time classic. And
I
people make it
disagree.
out to be this amazing movie. It's just, it's a fine movie. It's okay. It's not even in my top 3 baseball movies, let alone movies of
Yeah,
all
well,
time.
your movie list is a mess anyway.
All right, listen
so
to this.
look, like,
all right, I want you to tell me to pump the brakes when I'm wrong on this. Baseball movies.
Bull Durham.
Major League 1, Bull Durham 2,
Yep.
Sandlot 3. I'm waiting for you guys to tell me to pump the brakes. Guess what isn't in there? Field of Dreams. It's not even in the top 3 baseball movies, let alone best movies of all time. It is a overrated film. Fine movie, it's okay,
not
but
overrated.
it's overrated.
So I'll say this. Growing up, I wasn't a baseball fan. And when Field of Dreams came out, Kevin Costner was kind of that in-between kind of actor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he had given us Waterworld yet, which I still
Ooh,
haven't forgiven him for.
So bad.
But
It's really bad.
Really bad. I mean, oof, awful. But the one thing I will say is the thought of the whole movie, if you build it, they will come. That line has endured
It has.
throughout the course of time. But I'm kind of with Sean on this one, Mike. Like, I can't put it up there as an all-time classic only because I didn't grow up a baseball guy.
And it's right. And let's be real. Who the hell says, let's have a catch? At the end of the movie, Kevin Costner.
Search it on Twitter.
Can we have a
Search
catch?
that on Twitter?
Who says, can
okay.
we have a catch?
I'll give you another point of reference, too. I was yesterday years old when I found out that the movie was actually about Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until yesterday.
Yeah, and then everybody else gets involved, the other
Yeah.
players and his dad and everybody else. It's about Shoeless Joe.
So again, I didn't have any backstory about it to be drawn into it. So, and I wasn't a baseball fan altogether. So
Listen, it's a good movie.
it is a good movie. I enjoyed it. I got
me
through
too.
it. Yes.
James Earl Jones is amazing, right?
You
'Cause
throw
he
around
always is.
overrated, though. You can't just take that
Okay,
away. And the
because-
fact that you
listen,
put
but people say
Sandlot-
it's number one
People
overall.
have
Mike.
Mike Bauer, who we all know, has this as his favorite movie of all time. Stop it with that
All right.
garbage. That is not even
Hold up.
close
If
to
you
being
would
true.
if you would have gone there, I would have agreed with you.
right.
But you throw around like it's too overrated. No, it's not.
It's a good
And by
movie.
the way, the fact that you have Sandlot
Yeah.
ahead of Bad News Bears, your list is a mess anyways.
Bad News Bears is good.
Yeah, so your list is a mess anyways.
Even the one that they did not long ago with what's his name?
But the original with
The
Walter,
original with Walter is
you will never-
amazing.
yeah. So your list is a mess anyways, and I've known that about you. Known this for 10 damn years.
Yeah, Major League is that one for me. The baseball movie for me.
It is in Bull Durham too.
And Bull Durham.
I mean, when he's having it out with the umpire, and I know it's a podcast, but I still don't even want to go down the road of what he says to him. It is one of the funniest moments ever.
Bull Durham
Did
is
you call me
amazing.
I mean, it is the funniest. Oh, my God.
And I like these movies, and I didn't even, like I said, I'm
the same
I didn't
way.
even watch baseball like that.
I'm the
But
same
I like
way.
the movies.
Yeah.
And why do you have to have an all-time top 3? Why do you have to cut it off like that?
Fine, I'll keep going.
We always have top threes. They're
yeah.
always comparing and contrasting.
You're,
right.
we know your movie.
I told you we were
Your
gonna-
lists are a mess, so don't even.
Was I wrong about that? I don't think I was wrong about this one.
I don't
right,
agree.
moving on.
I do not agree.
All right.
Moving on.
Last, we'll do sports here, and then I got one pop culture here.
All right.
Your power rankings
Uh-oh.
for the NFL are out right now.
Oh, gosh.
Say what you will about them. Think about what you will about them. But in terms of the NFC West, here is the order and where the teams land.
Yep.
Rams 6, Seattle 7, San Francisco 9th. This is the NFL.com list. Arizona Cardinals 18th. Are we in agreement with that list, or are we pumping the brakes on that list?
That's about right. I'm not going to pump
I would
the brakes.
agree.
They're not going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be better. 8-8 or 9-8 seems like a very good number for this team because they got better, but so did everybody else.
Right.
Yep.
And they were already behind everybody else. And I cannot get the last 2 games out of my head from last season. When you had everything on the line, you had home games against teams that didn't really have much to play for, and you couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
The Rams and the 49ers one, that one boggles the mind. I can't get that one out of my head because they had nobody. It's like they asked me to come out there and go, and dust off the cleats and go out there and play for them, and they couldn't beat them.
Well, and the maddening part about that, if you're a fan of this team, is the way you took care of them in the opening game at their place when they were healthy.
Right.
And
Well, they
then
were
you come-
healthy-ish. They started the season pretty banged up.
Well, they did, but they had.
Yeah, Nick Bosa goes out week 1.
Right,
That's a
understood.
big
But
problem.
that team.
You're right.
Week 1 versus
Yeah.
where they caught them at the end of the
Yeah.
year. My point being, if you could have beat them week 1 the way they were.
Well, and
Sure.
here's
But here's the thing. When you look at it, in my mind, give me the NFC, the order again, real quick.
the
Just make-
order that they.
The Rams
this is
are number 1.
NFL.com has Rams are 6th overall.
Rams.
Seattle 7.
Seattle.
49ers 9. Cardinals down at 18.
So 1 through 4, that makes sense. Intuitively, you say, okay, look, if I look at that, I still question the Rams. I'm going to be honest.
Flip
right now.
flop San Francisco and Seattle to me.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that. A healthy
Yeah.
49ers team. I completely agree with that.
I'm questioning the Rams still. Like you're playing mad scientist here.
But what are you
got-
questioning about him?
All of it. You bring in a new quarterback. It's got to work.
Is he
right?
not an upgrade over Jared Goff?
I believe he's an upgrade, but doesn't it still have to work? You have to see it. Like I said, I'm not saying this is not a good team.
Sure.
I just need to see it, right?
I'll buy that, but I do agree he's an improvement.
But I already seen their defense, and their defense was already
The
good.
defense is legit. There's no
Yes.
question in that, right?
Yeah.
So,
but it also, as a play caller for Sean McVay, having, let's be real, the arm talent of Matthew Stafford, I don't have to tell you, Detroit guy, the arm talent of Matthew Stafford compared to the arm talent of Jared Goff, and the willingness to sling it is night and day.
no, and you look
so
at-
as a play caller for Sean McVay, it opens up so much more for him to do every Sunday than what he was able to do in previous years.
and no question, you talk about it, and you've heard some of the talking heads around say that if he stays healthy,
Yeah.
if the players around him that matter stay healthy, like he could start shattering some records before
Right.
it's all said and done here, and that's altogether possible. I just need to see it.
Well,
And-
yeah.
But the order, like, look, Cardinals 4th on that list, absolutely. 18 to me. I'm not a math guy. That feels like middle of the road in the NFL.
is, yeah. Bottom
That
half.
feels about right.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot of questions on this team. A lot of questions. It starts with the head coach.
Yep.
Starts with the age of some of the people they bought in, and then the other thing that they're on the clock. Because when you look at some of these teams that have gone over the hump, they've done it while their quarterback's on a rookie contract.
Yep.
At some point, this contract will not be good enough for this quarterback, and you're going to have to address it.
After this year, he can come to the table with
So there you
if
go.
he
So-
wants to.
so-
And I'll say this: context. Like for instance, everybody's looking at the Cardinals. Hey, we went from 5 wins to 8 wins. There's improvement there, even though we choked down the stretch or whatever you want to say about it. But you got to put context to it. So last year, or let me go back 2 years ago when you won those 5 games. You played Matthew Stafford, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson twice. Matt Ryan, Drew Brees was on that. You had to face him as well. Goff twice, Jimmy G twice. Last year, here's the list of quarterbacks you played: C.J. Beathard, Jalen Hurts in his second NFL start, Daniel Jones, Cam Newton, last year's Cam Newton, Tua in his second NFL start, Andy Dalton's first game with that team, Joe Flacco's first game with that team last year as well. It lined up. Dwayne Haskins isn't even on the same team anymore, barely hanging on in the lead.
Yeah, he is.
John Walford. Those are the quarterbacks that you faced last year, and you won 8 games and didn't get in.
No, and
Put
that's
context
Lost
to
2 in
it.
a row at home.
Yes. So yes, did you win 3 more games? You damn well should have. So
well, that's
now
where the
look at
context
this
is
year.
important, though. That's where the context
that's
is
what I'm
important.
saying.
Because I'm saying, no, my point is take a snapshot of this preseason poll by the NFL.com.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that way at the end of the year.
No.
Because those quarterbacks that you mentioned, those weren't the starting quarterbacks when they did last year's preseason poll, so injuries happen.
But what I'm getting at is it lined up for you better than it ever will again, and you did not capitalize on it.
Well, exactly. But who's going to get hurt this year is my point. Like, you don't know.
True.
So I think when you synopsize what happened with the Arizona Cardinals is opportunity. Did you take advantage of it?
Yeah.
A resounding no, particularly down the stretch.
Well, and that's, I mean, what I was getting at with that whole list is how improved were they last year? Really? You know what I mean? So you won 5 games in Cliff's first year. You won 8 in Cliff's second year. But how improved were you really when you had everything broke your way? Exactly right. Last thing here on Pump the Brakes. I told you we're going to go long on those a little bit there. There's a, apparently, Ihop. Apparently, IHOP is adding beer to the menu.
What?
So pump the brakes or not, some morning pancakes and beer at IHOP.
Pump the brakes. Okay, listen. There are about 4 beverages that go with breakfast.
All right.
Water,
Okay.
coffee,
OJ.
and apple juice.
Apple juice.
That's the list.
Whoa.
Everything else, get it, or maybe cranberry
All
juice.
right, what about champagne in your orange juice?
Get it out of
little
here.
mimosa.
A mimosa, that's for ladies. Come on now. Don't ever let me catch
Pretty
you.
good.
Don't let me catch you around the city with a mimosa in your hand.
Wait.
And
when
the
you
pinky
drink
up.
do you
The pinky up.
when
Don't
you
do
drink
it.
your mimosa, Sean Cressman, is your pinky up?
Last time I had a mimosa, we were in Vegas and they had bottomless mimosas at this breakfast joint we were at. Don't remember. Don't remember much.
Well, I was going to add,
More mimosas than breakfast?
in addition to that, what about a Bloody Mary?
All right. Okay.
I don't personally like, because I don't like tomato juice.
Get it out of here.
I mean,
Right.
because some restaurants make a production out of the Bloody Mary bar.
So what time is it to? You know, we did the whole what temperature becomes shorts weather before on this segment. What time is it okay to break out the beer, to pop it open? Because I mean, it's IHOP. You're probably going in the morning. So what time?
There is no time at IHOP. IHOP?
Yeah.
When does beer and syrup go together?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question.
Your love of mimosas notwithstanding, I ain't going to IHOP to have a beer. Give me a Bud and a stack of Old Fashions, please.
What?
No.
What are we talking
It ain't
about?
happening.
That is
All
ridiculous.
right, well, it's on the menu
Pump
now.
the brakes.
All right.
That's desperation. That's straight desperation.
It's today's.
That's what that
Where do
is.
you find this stuff?
I got my sources.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I got my ways. It is time, ladies
right.
and gentlemen, for what you all been waiting for. The man is wearing the shirt for it right now. He is full of them, full of dad jokes. The shirt alone is a dad joke, which I appreciate.
Come on now.
Yeah, the concept there. B-Train's going to give us a joke. He's going to get one of these.
Yeah.
If it is a quality joke, he'll get the laughter. If it's above and beyond, you get the standing O.
Okay.
But there's always that chance that it just doesn't land, and that little on your shirt goes
Still
down
mad
to,
about that. I'm
goes
still
down
mad
to
about the
empty.
one. Only happened one time.
Does that shirt?
Down to
You know
empty.
what? Let's find out.
Let me make sure people can see the shirt there. Okay,
That's
there we
right.
go.
Uh-huh.
All right, so lay it on us, sir. Where are we going?
All right, here we go. Never date a girl that plays tennis. They may be athletic, but love means nothing to them.
It's good. Took me a second, but that's good.
I like it.
That is good dad joking. Took me a second,
Love means nothing.
but I got it. Yes.
Get it?
That's pretty good. That's very good. All right, well
I
done.
like it.
Well done. That's
Good
one.
job.
Put it this way. That's one I'll tell my friends.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
I'm going to use it. Yeah, without a doubt.
pretty good.
The other thing that I love about this segment is how long ago was the trombone? Like how many weeks ago was that?
About 4
weeks.
It's like let's say it's a 3 or 4, like a month ago almost.
Yeah.
I'm still mad about
You're
it.
still mad.
I'm still mad about that. I still remember the joke.
What was the joke again?
The joke was why did the dad joke cross the road?
No, that wasn't it.
Yes, it was.
All right.
Well, the good thing is this is recorded, so somebody's lying.
Okay.
Yeah. Why did the dad joke cross the road? To get to the other side.
I've never heard that one.
Oh, can you stop it?
That was not it.
That was the
no,
joke.
I
yes,
can
it
tell,
was.
I can tell you what it was.
Okay.
I can tell you what it was. It was the chameleon, stand-up comedian.
That was it.
And I can't remember the punchline now. He's a stand-up chameleon. That's what it was. It was a lizard.
The lizard was telling jokes.
Yeah, and it was a stand-up
chameleon. You're laughing.
I'm laughing at the way it gets presented.
No, stop it. That was a good joke.
That was an all right joke.
Okay.
This one.
Yeah, got the trombone.
Is money.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a month later. He's still mad.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. So we're torn on it, Grose. You be what button am I pushing on that one?
We all have favorite children.
Wow. Well done.
I'm closer to it, man.
Well done.
I mean, one of these days he's going to come over the table after
well,
that, man.
well done.
But love means nothing to them?
That was good.
I like that
That was
one.
quality. I like it. It's like our ratings for movies. Like if it's halfway through, you're going to watch it.
Yeah.
The ratings for B-Train's jokes is are you going to steal it and tell people?
It's true.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell that one.
I'll tell that one.
I will tell that one.
It's a good one.
Proud
Thank you so much. I appreciate
I
it.
can't remember, and I'll set it up the way I always do. I'll say, I can't remember where I heard this, but
Yeah. Take credit for
somebody
him.
be like, you damn liar, I heard it on your
Yeah.
podcast.
Right.
Hey, thanks again to Vince Marotta for joining us on the
Yeah,
podcast.
my cousin
Wonderful
Vinny.
to catch up with him.
Yeah.
And we'll look to intersplice, is that the word? Introduce, work in,
Yeah.
whatever. We'll add Geska in the
Bring
in the
them out.
future.
Bring them out. Bring them out.
Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and follow us
YouTube.
on Twitter at Train and Gross. We'll see you next time.
Well, holla.